Laying down under the dark sky and watching out the stars is something which has been fascinating us since our childhood. This episode or podcast is like a total introduction to astronomy. Not only astronomy but also the ancient Indian sciences which have a lots of information yet to be discovered. On this very first episode, we have brought to you an amazing astronomer and entrepreneur who has already done more than 200 preliminary discoveries, who is working on making India's biggest private astronomical laboratory, the co-founder of AstroFanatics Mr. Akshit Khunger. So, on the behalf of AstroCapsule, I Prasad Doke welcome you all to the very first episode of the Aerospace and Aviation Show. So, Akshit sir, welcome to the show. That is the Aerospace and the Aviation Show. So, let's start with the questions directly. You have been working in astronomy for a long period now. You have also trained many students. So, after all this, I want to ask you is what is the one thing which fascinates you the most?
Okay, first of all, hi Prasad. Thank you so much for the wonderful question. So about astronomy and space science, I'm sure it's not just me, it's everyone who's kind of fascinated by this field. Because if we talk about it at one stage, every young child had the idea, I just want to be an astronaut when I grow up or something like that. It may last for a few days in someone's life, for a few weeks, or some people with whom it actually stays, they go and end up working in this field. So basically, I'd say what fascinates me the most is that, if we talk about it, there are 2 points I'd like to mention over here. The first one is the vastness out here. We run around everything on our own planet thinking, that this is it. But if you see outside, we are nothing compared to what we have out there. The second point is, if we talk about the concept of time, this has always fascinated me in a way because what is time according to us? One rotation of the earth is 24 hours, we called it one day. One revolution around the sun is 365.25 days, we called it 1 year. Eventually we've formulated this thing called time for ourselves. But even if we go to I'm not talking about outside our solar system, even if we go to a different planet in our own solar system, the concept of time totally changes for us. The concept of a day changes, the concept of an year changes. So this is one thing that fascinated me the most about this field.
Yeah, time really a huge concept. Means I was recently reading a book of Carl Sagan, and the way he explained time is just fascinating. Means it just blows off your mind.
Exactly.
Right. So next question I have is about the Indian astronomy, the Indian ancient astronomy. Means in India, you can see that uh, the scientists I would call rather than the Rishi Munis because they worked on science itself. What they proposed is something which we are finding today in today's life. So what is your take on that?
I'm sure. I always believe, not just if we talk about the ancient Indian sciences instead of the ancient Indian astronomy part, just generalizing the sciences as of now. If we talk about it, there have been so many advancements which were done thousands of years ago, which are being, inculcated into the foreign culture right now at this moment. And people are making discoveries around those findings at, today's time. So basically, if we talk about it, yes, I'm sure, there had to be some connection, although it's very strange and it blows the lid off your head if you think about it, that how come these people, when we knew nothing about what's out there in our, we didn't even know enough about our own planet, to be very honest. But these people had findings about, the models of the solar system, how, the rotations and revolutions are happening, which are the planets, which are the stars, how are objects moving in the sky. So I'm sure, there had to be some very eternal connection that these people had, which basically, told them that how things are going around there. Because I'm sure it was not based on the researches and all. Because to be very honest, if you think about it, the first telescope came into the picture around 450 years ago. And these findings have been here from the last thousands of years. So I'm sure it was some, something out of the world that they had some connection which helped them, make these findings, learn about these things. And also, coming to another point, I'm sure you would have discussed this with other astronomers also. So there's always a debate going on in the astronomy community, which says astronomy versus astrology, isn't it?
Mm.
I'm sure people talk a lot about this, but if you ask me, I believe in the idea of coexistence. You know, coexistence is not just based on your genders and your religions; it's based on your belief, basically. So, in the terms of beliefs, also astronomy and astrology, they have been there for thousands of years, and I won't say any of them is wrong. There has to be something. Everything is built on some basis. So I'm sure these sciences have been built on some basis. And if we talk about the ancient part of it, it's fascinating. It's still, it's still, kind of confuses me that how did these people come up with such things? But again, they did come up with the things. We have proofs of that, and that is just, totally out of this world. Of course.
Yeah, also about the constellations. I just was hearing to the Ranveer show yesterday. I don't know if you listened to that or not. And he also got an astronomer with him who told that he was just working on 2 to 3 things, and after he just discovered that, he found that that is already mentioned in our Vedas. So what he's doing now is he's going through the Vedas first, and then he's working on the work he wants to do. So that is one thing which I think that Indian astronomy, if we explore more, maybe we can find something which is not yet discovered properly.
Exactly. That's a wonderful point, Prasad. And I'm sure this is the case. There have been so many findings, which we've proven right now, but still there's so much text that we have to go through. And there is a chance we might come up with so many beautiful things that we don't even know of at this given moment.
Yeah, that's it. Continuing this question, I wanted to ask you, how would it be to include astronomy in the curriculum or the studies of Indian students?
That's a wonderful question, Prasad. And this is something I really advocate and I talk about. Initially, if we talk about it, astronomy is a growing field. It has been there for thousands of years. Whenever I'm, teaching students, whenever I'm interacting with a group of students, I always mention astronomy as the mother of all sciences. There's a simple reason, just giving you a very small basic example which anyone can understand. If we talk about it, if we talk about the early man, I'm going to the early man, which, when they were born, they had no idea that they could go around, they could explore anything out there, right? Because they were, kind of scared that if I, move a little bit ahead out of, from my place, I won't be able to return back because there was no concept of directions or anything at all, right? So this is when astronomy came to picture. They used to travel whatever they could in one day and come back by the evening so that, they are not lost eventually, right? Nowadays, it's so easy with Google Maps and everything around, isn't it? But it wasn't at that time. So the thing is, at that time, what people did was they actually started looking at the stars because after the evening they had nothing to do, they had nothing at all. Plus, there was no light pollution, of course. So they had the clearest skies that mankind has ever observed. So they actually saw the skies, they saw how things are moving, and they came up with the concept of directions using the pole star, and they came up with the concept of directions. That is how they started moving. Hence, if you talk about it, all the other sciences that have come up in today's world, somehow they all started because of astronomy. So, such an important core subject should always be there in our curriculums. But if we talk about it, we just have that one single chapter about the solar system and the planets that is being taught in schools, right?
Right.
And above that, anything that goes over our head. And even nowadays, I'll just tell you to anyone who's listening this, just a simple thing, just a simple experiment. If you go to anyone, if you ask them, yeah, which is the brightest star in our night sky, I'm sure 80% of the people will answer, oh, it's the pole star, isn't it?
Right.
Because that is how we've connected things. We aren't taught things in detail. We are just, given an overview in our curriculum. So, and let me tell you, that's not true. Polestar is not the brightest star. It is the 48th brightest star. Sirius
Oh,
is the brightest star. So, talking about the brightness, that is not a parameter to find the North Star or the directions, of course. So, the thing is, coming back to your point, I'm sorry, I just got a little bit lost in between. Coming back to your point in the curriculums, yes, such a subject is very important because it tells us not just about our planet but what lies beyond it. And nowadays I'm sure other countries have started progressing towards this. They've tried to include this in their curriculum in one way or the other. I'm sure India is also working on the same track, and I'm sure within a few years with the constant efforts of people like you and us, some people like us would prompt the government and the education, department to actually put in things like this in the curriculum so that people know about this field, because space is the field of future. Just like we had an IT boom a few years ago, we are looking forward to a space boom in the coming decade. So before that, we should be taught this. Nowadays, you'll see small kids are learning coding and all those things, isn't it? So it's essential if they're learning something like that. Astronomy is a core subject. Again, it is something that you can actually, it's something tangible. You can actually look at it out there. You can feel the, night sky. So hence, it is an essential part which should be included in the curriculum, of course, in the coming years. And I really hope this happens.
Yeah, that's really true. For me, I would say that I was really fascinated. I aimed to go for aerospace engineering since I was in 10th standard. I loved rockets and all that thing. But astronomy was something I got introduced when I got into engineering. That too not from the curriculum but from the other resources like friends and the facts. Engineering is something where you go through diverse things, you get to learn many things, and for me astronomy was one such thing. So what I think is that even in the aerospace engineering syllabus, astronomy should be given a very important place, because discovering is something very highly related to astronomy. Means if you want to discover something in space, astronomy is the basics you need. So,
Exactly. Oh, that's a very good point, Prasad. Coming from the same background as you, the aerospace engineering background, I would like to add this. I was very much bummed when I got to know, that come on, I'll be studying just one subject related to astronomy in my complete 4 years. And that too was a subject which everyone took very lightly. Eventually, astronomy is not a part of even aerospace engineering, and that made me really, go I went berserk over the fact that how is it even happening? Because one of my personal goals was, my personal aim to go for aerospace engineering was to learn more about astronomy. But going there, realizing that it's not even a part of the curriculum as such, we are not even being taught this in the first 3 years of our engineering. That was very, sad actually. And I believe, in the coming years, this will be improved, and astronomy, it deserves a separate course, not just a part of things like aerospace engineering or your basic curriculum. It is such a vast field that it deserves a separate space as a separate course out there in different educational institutions. And I really hope that people work on it. And yes, for people like you and me who have a thing for astronomy, in the future, young kids with the same mindset, they get to study more and more about it, so that when they are at our age, they literally can directly go and work on their research projects instead of, trying for things and trying for other opportunities.
right. So from here, I would like to take you to the skill set. There are various students like me who are currently in engineering or who are going to go through the 11, 12 standard, and then they'll be applying for engineering. So what are the skill set you think should be there with the students if they want to get into astronomy?
Coming to the skill set part, Prasad, I'll tell you one thing. Honestly, I strongly believe in one thing. There's no better learning than self-learning, right? And if something is not being taught in the schools as of now, it is not a part of the curriculums. So it leaves just one option: go and study by yourself, right? But I'll tell you one thing. There are two basic subjects which I really emphasize on. If someone wants to go into a little bit of research about astronomy and space, I would just say there are two certain things which you should never miss, and you should be in love with two subjects to go into hardcore research. Those two subjects are physics and mathematics. So these two subjects, they build up the base for anything you do in astronomy. I'm talking about the research part in astronomy, right? For observational and amateur astronomy, honestly, nothing that you read in your school can help you with that. It's just experiential learning, because what you learn in this domain, this is by experiences. Again, the best teacher, the best skill set that you can acquire by yourself, in the field of observational astronomy is go out to a place outside your city, to a suburb place or a rural area. Just take a couple of sheets with you, put them on the ground, lie down and look at the stars, man, because that feeling is unmatched. Plus, what you observe, you tend to remember that. If you spend even a few hours under a dark and a good sky, you can actually feel the rotation of the earth happening right in front of you. You could see the stars changing positions, just like we see the sun rising in one direction, setting in the other direction, isn't it? You can feel those things. And I believe, experiential learning is one such fact that you should always inculcate into your everyday life. Plus, about the basic skill set, a few more things if you'd like me to add. I would say, you should start reading books. As you mentioned, you were recently reading a book by Carl Sagan, isn't it? So these prominent, astronomers, astrophysicists who've been there in the past, who've done so much research and contributed so much to the field, they've written some wonderful books. And I would say just reading and studying about this would give you different perspectives and an idea about different fields which you can actually pursue. So I think that is one way to go around this. That is one way students can, pursue something in this field, and they can probably go ahead and build a career just by using these points.
That's great. So, say you have been involved in asteroid search campaigns and have searched about 200 preliminary discoveries. So, how did that work out?
Okay, so let me tell you, some fields in, some projects in astronomy, they require a lot of, manual hours and, to be put into it. Everything is not automated that way. Most of the things are, but some things are not. So this asteroid hunt, if we talk about it, this is one project which is carried out by NASA, IASC, and Pan-STARRS Observatory based out of Hawaii. So what they do is they basically, the people at NASA, they don't have so much time to spend on every portion of the sky and look for certain asteroids. So the asteroids we are mostly talking about over here, they lie in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Some of them can also be NEOs, that is near Earth objects, and so you can find NEOs or asteroids in the main asteroid belt. So talking about this, all the students, they can directly go ahead and drop emails to IASC, and they can reserve their seats. There's a 5 to 6 month waiting in that. Once you get the seats for that, you can basically, you get image sets from the Pan-STARRS Observatory in Hawaii. What you have to do is you have to learn a new software, use those image sets to basically find and manually detect objects moving in that. So one image set is made up of 4 images which were taken 15 minutes apart. So in a duration of 1 hour, you will see that, what do you say, your objects, your stars and everything, that remains constant. They are not moving as such, but the asteroids are moving at a good pace because they're closer to us, plus they're traveling at a high speed. So, you have to go through the image sets, you have to make those discoveries. And let me also add a little bit to that. So, as you mentioned about the preliminary discoveries, there are 3 levels of discoveries. The first one is the preliminary discovery, which, once you observe it, you send your, you generate a report out of it, you send it back to IASC, they go through your data, and they tell you if you actually discovered a new object. Those objects which are being discovered for the first time and they are observed for the first time, they are called preliminary objects. So I have around 234 preliminary discoveries as of now. When you have preliminary discoveries, the next step is they basically keep on tracking all those objects that you discovered. When they track those objects, they get to know if they are able to look at those objects again and again. So a few of the objects, for which they are able to plot the complete orbit between Mars and Jupiter, the complete path of the asteroid. So, and if they've observed it at least 20 to 30 times, they give it a provisional status. So after preliminary comes the provisional status. In the provisional, I have 6 provisional discoveries also, but if you check out the ratio, it's just 6 to 234. So the chances of making a provisional discovery is quite less. But with the provisional discoveries, once you have a provisional discovery to your name, in 4 to 5 years, they'll work on that object, they'll observe it a few more times, and when they are done with the complete orbit part, they've confirmed it, they add it to the MPC database, that is the Minor Planet Center database. Once they've done that, the discoverers, just like us, we get the opportunity to name the object whatever we want to. So that is a very, very good opportunity, of course, and that is what we are all aiming for. Because I'm sure, in a field like this, to let your name stay out there even long after you're gone, this is something that is actually very fascinating. And I'm sure many people would love to do something like this. So about this, let me tell you, you can directly go to IASC. This is a free campaign, of course. But just in case, if you want to, save some time, you want a training module on that, and you want someone to help you a little bit with that, we organize astrometry, training workshops. where we help students learn the
Mhm.
software because for younger kids in the age group of 10 to 15, it is a bit difficult to learn a new software by themselves. So we thought, this is a good opportunity to bridge the gap where we can help these young students to, contribute to this field at a very young age. So eventually we organize
Mhm.
certain training modules for them where we teach them astrometry, we tell them how to go around it. And just to put it out there, my youngest participants were 8 and 9 years old who discovered their own asteroids and have provisional discoveries at the age of 9. So that is again something really fascinating. And to all our, to the audience out there, let me tell you, these citizen science projects, they are very interesting, and you're actually contributing to the field in a real way, and you're making an impact in this field. So I'm sure this is one thing that people should pursue at all times.
Great. From workshops, I directly want to take you to Astrofanatics. Astrofanatics has been a huge part of your life now. So
Exactly.
just get people through the Astrofanatics and the future, what we are going to do, everything.
Okay, so about Astrofanatics, we started this venture back in September 2020. It's been 1.5 years and it's been an amazing journey till now. We came up with the idea because after, our education in the aerospace engineering background, me and one of my friends, one of my fellow co-founders, we realized that, there's a huge gap in this. And in a country like India, there are not many organizations working in this domain. We're not talking about astronomy, education, and tourism. And if you tell me, honestly, if you take a sample space of 100 people, you go to them and you ask them, do you like the stars or are you fascinated by the stars? I'm sure 80% would definitely say yes to that. At least 80%, right? We did a little bit of research on that.
Sorry to
I'm
disturb
sorry.
you. Sorry to disturb, but what I think is 80% would definitely say yes. But I don't think that 70% of them don't know about stars anything. Means they just love stars. They love astrophotography, but they are not deep into it.
Exactly. That's the perfect point, Prasad. And that was our research when we, thought about this venture. We went out, we did we took a sample space of around 1,000 people. We conducted our own researches just to know that, what is the thought process of people around this. And honestly, as you mentioned exactly, more than, 60 to 70% of the people, they were unaware about things in this domain, right? It's just that, it kind of felt fascinating to them because somewhere it brings memories back from your childhood, those days when you thought, I want to be an astronaut, isn't it? So it brings back memories from those days. So that is why they are fascinated. But yes, there's a lot of gap in the education that we've received about this field. Hence, we thought about coming with something, and that is how Astrofanatics came into the picture. We came up with Astrofanatics because we ourselves are fanatics about astronomy and space science. So we thought, why not make a community of such fanatics and people who are crazy about the field of space and astronomy, and till now, it's been 1.5 years. What we've been doing is we've been, about our educational courses, we've been targeting school children and college children alike because we feel if we start making a difference at the grassroots level, it'll actually impact them and it'll give them more and more knowledge so that which they can build upon in the coming years. So, about our education modules, we mainly target, younger audiences, school and college going students, and we also have another astrotourism domain where we work on, setting up observatories in different places. And we actually conduct astronomy sessions with people where we teach them. Now, in this, the astrotourism part, there is no age gap. I've taught more than 10,000 people from the age group of 6 to 80. So that basically includes all the age groups, that we know of who would actually sit out there with us. So 6 to 80 is a huge sample space, and we've conducted sessions with them. Also, to add to it, we are working on many other projects. We recently set up India's largest privately owned observatory in Himachal Pradesh. It's called Meenabag Observatory. It's near Narkanda. We set up India's largest privately owned telescope over there, and we're planning to build around that observatory and do more and more research projects around it. Plus, one thing is we want to promote this astrotourism part also, because with the coming times, we've started, because of all the light pollution and the other types of pollution that we have, we've been ruining our dark skies. So there have to be certain areas where we preserve the dark skies because, come on, it is one good chance to see what is actually out there in the universe. and everyone should cherish the opportunity to look at the stars and experience that for once. So yes, I
Really.
think these are the two domains Astrofanatics has been working on, and for our future, we really hope we are able to set up more such projects and educate more and more people and promote more and more students to go in this field and learn about it.
Okay. Again, I had a question on the same thing that for the students who just don't know about anything as about astronomy, but they want to get into it. Can you just tell what is the future in astronomy, or how can they build their future in astronomy?
Perfect. Okay. So, again, talking about the future of this domain, I mentioned earlier in one of the questions that probably around 15 to 20 years ago, an IT boom came into the picture, isn't it? And it's still flourishing.
Right.
IT industry, took the world by a storm, and right now it is one of the biggest domains in the world. Not one of the, it is the biggest domain in the world, right? It is generating the maximum number of jobs. It has been, it is now used in every other field that we talk about, be it finance, be it operations. IT is everywhere. Data analytics, business analytics, these things they come from the IT domain, right? If we talk about it, if you ask my vision, I can very clearly say that in the coming few years, let's just say by the next decade or in the next 10 years itself, there is going to be a space boom, and it will be bigger than the IT boom that we have heard of. And how is that happening? Let me tell you, most of the people, I'm sure half of our audience over here, they won't be knowing about something called the NASA's Artemis program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Artemis program, you know, it all sounds very, sci-fi and that kind of a thing. But if we talk about it, the moon, we are all fascinated by the moon, isn't it? We all love looking at the moon. It looks beautiful, and that is, looking at it, you can actually figure out different colors, craters, and everything out there. But imagine, that in 1 to 2 years, by 2024, we are sending 18 astronauts to the moon to build a small base over there. And
Right.
that is what the Artemis program is about. People have no idea about something like this happening in the coming 2 years. But once this happens, these events, they would be a they would bring a big boom to this industry, because let's just say, man, we all have seen the moon, isn't it? Imagine a few years later, 10 years down the line, you're looking at small yellow dots on the surface of the moon, some lights coming from the surface of the moon when you look at it. That will be a huge step for mankind, people living on the moon, building a base, and eventually building a city on the surface of the moon. So these events combined with our, journey to Mars, which is planned for around 2032. So I'm sure mankind is on the correct path, and within a few years, we're looking at interplanetary life also. And hopefully, when these events start happening, when these launches start taking place, more and more people will start, taking this field seriously, and they'll then start promoting the kids to learn more and more about it. And to be very honest, the parents that I deal with nowadays, they are the ones who are very woke and who have an idea about what's happening around the globe. So they are putting their kids into such courses at a younger age because they want to promote them, and they want to actually they want their kids to be ready to, capitalize on this boom in the coming 8 to 10 years. So these are the visionary parents who are working in this. But a few years down the line, 3 to 4 years, you'll see everyone rushing after this. And nowadays, you coming from the aerospace engineering background, I'm sure when you would have thought about pursuing aerospace engineering, I can count the number of colleges on my hand who are offering aerospace engineering in our country, isn't it? We can
Right.
count those colleges on our hand, on one hand actually. Now the thing is, if you think about it, these courses will be more and more common, more and more people will be pursuing it. Nowadays, what computer science has been in the last 10, 15 years, that is what aerospace and astronomy will be in the coming few years. So yes, there's a huge scope for this field. And to everyone out there, let me tell you, it's a good time to start working on this, start building a skill set which will help you build a career and to shift to this domain in the coming years. Because let me tell you, space is the future. And of course, those days are not far when we'll be looking at humans walking on moon again and on the surface of Mars also.
I skipped on to the next question, but your space tourism thing was somewhere running in my mind. I would really get there, and I just get with you to your station once to see that telescope.
Anytime, looking forward to it.
Okay. So, sir, we recently had an astrophotographer on a AstroCapsule, one of the workshop. So, I just wanted to know shortly that how much does astrophotography excite you?
Oh, let me tell you, I'm equally excited about looking at the stars and clicking the stars. I myself, I'm an astrophotographer also. I carry my, I cannot travel to a dark location without my camera. That's the thing. Astrophotography, if we talk about it, it's very, very addictive. The only reason being, because again, to simplify it for you, when we look at the stars, when you look at the Milky Way galaxy, you will be looking at a white cloudish patch out there in the sky. And you'll be thinking, why is this cloud not moving in the night sky? Okay, that is those are the questions I usually face whenever I'm showing someone the Milky Way for the first time. Because the pictures that we've seen, they are so much colorful, vibrant, beautiful, isn't it? Now, the thing is, we don't consider the fact that as a human, again, our eyes are really powerful that way, but we blink every 6 to 8 seconds, isn't it? So, when we blink, we close the shutter and we start capturing the details from scratch again. So, if we
Right.
talk about it, we can only look at it for 6 seconds and try to form the details, but after 6 to 8 seconds, it would refresh and start from the scratch. That is what happens with our eyes. But with our cameras, with the equipment that we build, the cameras are very much, helpful because they can continuously capture the details out of the night sky. And using those details, you can actually see the colors in which things actually exist out there. So let me tell you, just putting it out here for all the people who have a little bit of idea about astrophotography or who want to start with astrophotography, it is a very, very beautiful hobby. Again, it is also, let me put this in, double quotes over here, it is also one of the most expensive hobbies in the world, because you'll need to spend a lot of time on building your equipment and everything. But to start with it, you can do it even with your smartphones nowadays. That is how technology has advanced.
Mhm.
So we do take courses in astrophotography also, and it is addictive because you can start realizing what color objects are out there, and certain objects which you cannot even see from your naked eyes. You can actually click them with your camera and then observe the details in them. Hence, astrophotography is a big, big part of astronomy and space science. And I'm sure many amateur astronomers, they've become astrophotographers also, because it is the hunger to explore more and more and to look at those objects. We can do it till a certain extent, but to look deeply into them, you need to get into astrophotography, get the details out of your objects, do some processing. There's a lot of tedious work which goes into astrophotography, but it helps you understand the night sky in a much better way. So I would say anyone who's looking to build up in this field, astrophotography is an element you should always consider, but you should consider it once you've done the observational astronomy and you feel like it's time to move on to the next level.
Right. About the addiction, when you talked about it, I just got one of my quote remembered, which says that if you get the addiction of astronomy, you cannot get any other addiction because all money you have, you'll spend on it itself.
Exactly. That's a perfect good, because see, let me tell you, you always start building upon equipment, right? Now you'll see many, people on YouTube putting up videos about this who are astrophotographers. They'll show you pictures of the same object they've clicked with different equipment. So I
Right.
recently came across a video, and the guy put up a setup over there. He said, "This is a picture I clicked from my $500 setup. This is from a $2,000 setup. This is from a $8,000 setup. This is from a $15,000 setup." And with every image, I could feel that, again, the money, the price of the equipment was increasing, of course, but the quality was also improving exponentially. Eventually, to work in this field, you need to build upon equipment. But as I said, for anyone out there who wants to start with this field, nowadays, even your smartphones are good enough. Go ahead with that. When you feel you're building upon it, you're learning, you've learned processing, then only go ahead and get into advanced level astrophotography.
Right. Uh, Now let's come back to astronomy for photography. So we see that some of the advanced countries or developed countries are very forward as compared to India. So what do you think are the advancement required and how may the government help in it?
Okay, the advancements. So let me tell you all the other countries. Let's just talk about, let's go country by country if it's okay with you, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about USA for once. The United States of America, now NASA has been running for a long time, right? Just to give you an idea about that and to all our audience out here, ISRO came into existence on 15th of August 1969.
Right.
And, the first manned mission to moon, that was Neil Armstrong who went out there to the moon. And he went around 3 weeks before ISRO came into existence. So NASA was already standing on the moon. There, people were standing on the moon, and we came up with the idea of ISRO 3 weeks after that.
Right.
And to be very honest, we are very much behind them. But actually we were behind them. But in the last few years, we've tried to catch up as much as we could, and India has done a good job in that. Coming to the other countries and the advancements that they have now, what USA has done is NASA has basically started their own, segment for education. So what they've done is they themselves, what organizations like you and organizations like us are trying to do over here, by the medium of such, interactive sessions, we're trying to promote more and more people and to bring about awareness about astronomy, isn't it? We are certain individuals doing it with a limited reach, but people out there, countries and space organizations, they've opened their own wings, and their own wings for basically education in astronomy and space science. And NASA is doing it through JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They have certain people who are astronomy and communicators, SciComm communicators, who are actually telling people about astronomy and space sciences and the benefits of it and the future of the field. So these countries are advanced due to these reasons because they've taken up the initiative of educating their own audience. If
Right.
the country does it at a grand scale, nothing like it and nothing beats that. Uh, People like us, we are trying our best to reach the maximum number of audience, but there is no way in the next 1 or 2 years we can, say that we'll reach every single household in the country. That's very difficult for us to say. But for governments, it's very easy. And USA and even ESA now, European Space Agency, they are working on the same grounds. They have themselves taken up the initiative to educate young kids and to promote the field of astronomy and space science in their fellow countries. And I believe the day India starts doing something like this, we'll be at a good level. And we know this. As a matter of fact, everyone out of us is well aware of the fact. Most of the brilliant minds working in organizations like NASA, ESA, they have around at least 20 to 30% Indians working there. Right. And the only thing is they have more exposure, more technological advancements out there, so people rush there. But if we start doing it over here in India, we'll have the best base of the minds working in the space domain in our country. And I really hope that will be the scenario in the next 5 to 6 years.
Well, definitely, Indian people are definitely the future. Even the largest companies, even in IT sector, if you see, Indian people are leading like anything. Again, in this itself, I got one more question in my head is people like me, or the students like me, I would say, who are currently in fourth year of their engineering or final year of their engineering, and who directly don't who means are not interested to working on astronomy directly. Means maybe I'm love to work on spaceships and other things. So how can we side by side contribute to astronomy?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat the question once?
Okay, so for I'll tell my case itself. So I like astronomy, but I am more fascinated by spaceships. So if I'm working on spaceship in future after my engineering, but I like astronomy as my part-time thing. So how can I contribute on that?
See, so let me tell you, anyhow, if you're working on, spacecrafts and all those things, you're still contributing to astronomy. Okay. Let me tell you, astronomy is, basically people have this misconception out there in their minds. Astronomy is the study of anything that lies outside our own planet, isn't it? So even if you're building spacecrafts, you will be studying about the outer space, isn't it? So you are in one way or the other contributing to astronomy. But let me break down astronomy into two segments for you. One segment of astronomy is what you'll be doing professionally, what kind of research you're conducting when you are working on your own field, that is maybe propulsion for your spacecrafts or the spacecraft design and all those things. That is one segment. You are still contributing to astronomy, but indirectly and in a very limited way. In other terms, let me tell you,
Mhm.
amateur astronomy and observational astronomy, these are two same things basically. But what these fields are, these are things which you do using your own equipment, your own telescopes. You do research, you go through the images which have been clicked to certain through certain things like the Hubble Space Telescope. You try to process those data sets, try to get something out of it. That goes more into the research domain, and that is contributing more towards hardcore astronomy. But again, in both ways, you are contributing to astronomy. In one way, you're contributing in a limited way. In the other way, you are directly contributing to it with, all your heads over toes, that kind of a thing. So eventually, astronomy is a field you'll contribute to. And again, one such thing is, which I always mention, which I always talk about to anyone I'm teaching or anyone I'm interacting with. I always love to say, if you want to contribute to the field of astronomy, just do one thing. Just try to avoid being a part of the light pollution that we have out there, because we've been ruining our night skies for years now. And I strongly believe every place where you find those huge lights and everything, that ruins the night sky for people, right? So
Mhm.
earlier it was easier for me to go and find locations where I had no light pollution so that I can do my astronomy part over there, but my astronomical observations and astrophotography. But with more and more lights and people settling at such places, it's difficult to find certain places. So one thing I would recommend to everyone is, if you want to contribute to astronomy, stop the light pollution, and start working towards an idea where you can reduce this in certain ways. Just to put it out there, one of the most important ways, and one of the actually the primary ways by which you can use reduce light pollution is the street lights that we have nowadays. You'll see half of them, they are basically illuminated. They are either facing towards the top or towards the side. They are vertical like this.
Mhm.
The street lights, all of them, they should be pointing downwards, because this actually stops the light from scattering out. And using this, if all the street lights are point towards the bottom side and they're covered from the top, you could even see a better number of stars, and you could even see the Milky Way galaxy from your cities. And that is how you could
Right.
contribute to astronomy in your own ways. So think about ways to reduce light pollution. You're anyhow contributing to this field.
Okay. So from the you said about the destruction you get due to pollution, I would get on to the space debris. Space debris is something I think the astronomers and astrophotographers hate the most. So what is your take on that?
Definitely, it is a huge point of concern at this moment. And let me tell you about space debris and anything that's out there in space. It's actually ruining the night skies for everyone. And the satellites. If you are out at a dark location, you can see hundreds of satellites moving over your head in 1 or 2 nights. Like every 1 hour, I can easily spot 5 to 6 satellites going over my head. And again, that is not a very good thing if you talk about it. There's a video out there which people can see, which tells you the space debris advancements in the last 30 years. It actually tells you how we had
Mhm.
only around 40 or 50 objects out there a few years ago around our planet, but nowadays they are in hundreds of thousands. So hundreds of thousands of objects, it's a very very huge number. It has formed a complete web over our own planet. And let me tell you, another one such project is the Starlink project by SpaceX. So Elon Musk and SpaceX, they actually planned to put up. They're actually already going ahead with that. They're putting up 50,000 satellites out there to provide a global internet connectivity.
Right.
And 50,000 satellites is a very very huge number, isn't it? And they're all part of the same nexus. So there are things, people started spotting these Starlink trains, because they were sets of 10 or 15 satellites moving together in a line, which is rotating, which is revolving around our planet. So these satellites, again, if you think about it, if I'm clicking an astrophotograph, if I have 10 satellites moving in a line through my astrophotograph, it ruins all of it, isn't it? It feels like someone took a scale and a pencil and they put 10 lines in my image, or it looks like something I've done in paint deliberately. So that, of course, it kind of ruins an experience for astrophotographers. And about astronomers also, space debris is a huge concern, because the number of satellites at this moment, we are increasing the frequency of satellites that we're putting into orbit, isn't it? with the increasing number, it's always a risk that we are putting out there. And recently, in the month of February or March, I think, in the month of March, there was a part of a Chinese rocket which basically went on and collided with the moon. And there have been
Right.
certain situations where half of the space debris, it was unplanned, but it is still out there, and we are still working on a way to bring it out, bring it back, or to remove it from the sky and remove it from revolving around our planet. Now, that was a small part of a Chinese spacecraft which collided with the moon. Let's just say, in case that was a bigger part, that would have caused a couple of earthquakes on the surface of moon. And we are putting everything into the danger with the space debris. And of course, people are working on various projects. One such projects, even a couple of my batchmates, they've been working on the same project right now to remove space debris, and they've been formulating ways to bring down the parts. Most of the parts that we know of that formulate the space debris, they are metallic parts, but some of them are even ceramic parts. So it's a huge question of how do you bring in ceramic parts back to the planet? How do you dump them? Where do you bring them? So yes, it is a huge concern, and I'm really hopeful the way things are going. In the last 3 to 4 years, there have been many research papers coming up on space debris, and I'm sure in the next 5 to 6 years something would turn into practicality, and we'll be able to work on the space debris part and basically reduce that. And that is very important at this given moment of time.
Yeah, the people would be waiting for that thing. So, sir, we have a rapid fire section also. So there are 8 to 10 questions we'll be asking to you, and you can just answer them in one word or one sentence, however it is possible. So first one is, if you are starting your career again, what would it be? A good job or a startup?
A startup.
Okay, that was expected one. One person you admire the most in space sector.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay, the same thing. One person from India whom you'd like to work with.
Okay. There's so many people. I think I would love to work with Mr. K7.
Oh, he's a great person, really. Recommend a book to the people who want to get into astronomy.
One book. I have a list of books coming to my mind. I cannot figure out one name out of it. I'm sorry.
Multiple ones, that's fine. I can understand this one.
uh, I think the theory of everything seems like a good option for people to start with it, just to get an idea how things are out there.
So, next question. Well, this is for good one. Which one would you choose? And also, I want a why for this answer. Carl Sagan or Stephen Hawking?
That's such an ambiguous question, man. Come on. Who would you choose? See, honestly, if you ask me, this might be an ambiguous answer, but yes, I would choose both of them because they both have contributed to the field in their own ways. And without the discovery of any one of them, space would be a totally different domain at this moment.
That's true. So, explain astronomy in one sentence.
Astronomy is not just a science, it is a field that you love. It is something that you can experience not just by your eyes, but your heart also.
Okay. A sci-fi movie.
Interstellar, any day.
An Indian mission you're looking forward to.
The Gaganyaan.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. And how would your experience be if you get to be a traveler to Mars?
Honestly, the very first point that comes to my mind thinking about being a traveler to Mars is fear, because as we all know, it will be a one-way mission for the people who are going out there, because you'll need enough technology to be built over there to come back. But I'm sure, from an idea of an explorer, yes, exploring a new planet is exciting as anything.
Right. So to end up with the show, I just want you to give all the listeners a message who are working to achieve their dreams.
Okay, so to everyone out there, thank you so much for listening to what we had over here, and it was an amazing interaction. Thanks to Prasad. Let me tell you, the field of astronomy and space science, it is the future, as I've talked many times during this session itself. It is the future, and it's not just about what you are taught, it is something about self learning, about experience. Plus, astronomy and space science requires a lot of persistence, and it requires a lot of effort from your end. If you're willing to put that, I'm sure there's a bright future awaiting you, and who knows, there might be a star, or an asteroid that you get to name after yourself. So always work towards this domain with your persistence and hard work, and I'm sure there's nothing out there in the universe you can't achieve.
See, thank you, sir, for being with us. I love to talk to you. I really love to get with you in offline someday. Because of some things, we are in online section itself right now, and I would really like to get with you into Himachal to just observe many things and just have an experience as soon as possible, I would say. Thank you
Looking
very much.
forward to it, Prasad. Thank you so much for such a wonderful platform.
So this was the beautiful conversation with Mr. Akshit Khunger. We'll definitely try to get him to the second part of this episode wherein we'll dive more deep into astronomy. Until then, do follow the Aerospace and Aviation Show and subscribe to AstroCapsule for listening more such talks.